Hello again.
Hello. Jam into the song, like always.
Jamming. Yep.
Good morning, and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, projects, or processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am not Sharon Weaver. I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I explore management and leadership topics and whatever else we want to insert in from the perspective of what not to do.
Accurate. What not to do, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Oh, wait. Yeah. So today we are talking about a mistake that doesn't really show up on project plans or status reports, but does quietly erode teams over time. And that is overlooking the growth curve.
Because whatever do you mean by that, Sharon?
Because even the most capable people will stagnate if they're not challenged, stretched, or given room to grow.
You know, I'm lucky that the first tech company that I worked for, a little company in outside of Sacramento in a little town called Rockland, and that the founder of the company was really big on everybody continually learning. And he was a voracious reader and would pay people to read an approved list of management leadership books and then share in the team meetings. I got to report back. And then he would pay you. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was like, hey, if that's extra incentive to go and read some of those books. But I read books like The Goal, which absolutely loved, and continues to be one of my favorite books of all time. So, I mean, this is a topic that especially hits hard in high pressure environments. When you have all these deadlines, the mindset quickly becomes, hey, look, we're just trying to get stuff done, and learning gets pushed to the side. It's a nice to have. Even if you have budget allotted, you have time allotted. I remember being told, like, we want you to go through and you've got X amount of training. When you go to actually take the time, hey, I'm going to be away for 2 days. I'm taking this internal from our learning organization, taking this workshop, and it's looked at as a negative thing.
Yeah. Well, I really think that managers assume that everyone, even high performers, right? They just assume they're fine because they're showing up every day, they're doing their job, they're getting things done.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, they just assume that everything's okay. But, they just don't see that slow disengagement that happens when people stop learning or feel underutilized in the role that they're in.
Yeah, it is. It's subtle. That could happen. And usually people are not complaining about that they're not growing. Some people are very vocal about that because some people are very, they're trying to develop skills. They're taking on new projects intentionally so that they could expand their skill set and move up the ladder. So a lot of people just aren't raising their hands. They stop experimenting. They stop volunteering to do other additional projects or to mentor and help other people. And what happens is that they're not being fulfilled, and they eventually start looking elsewhere, outside of your team, outside of your company.
Yeah, either they start looking elsewhere or they stop trying, and they become essentially that their skill set kind of goes so stale that they're there, but are they really able to do the thing that you need them to do, right? So either they're going to continue to grow and leave, they're just not going to provide that value to your company, or they're going to stay and stagnate, and you're going to kind of lose out on it anyways. And so I think ultimately it's best for proactive managers to pay attention to when they notice that plateau happening. So when you notice that somebody is kind of starting to go stale in their skill set, you're like, wait a minute, do you not know the new stuff? Like, have you not looked at anything? Hey, there's a movie, Crack a Book, right? Crack a Book. Because growth doesn't always mean that you're moving up the chain in terms of like promotion. It doesn't mean that you have to take on a different role. It doesn't mean that you have to take on a different title. It doesn't mean that you have to immediately go from, doing a task to managing people. It could simply just be that you're maybe trying some new things, doing some new responsibilities, practicing a new skill, some sort of exposure to a different challenge. Any sort of growth is growth. And I mean, I know in my business, I'm a little bit aggressively helpful about this because I kind of force people and really expect people to continue to learn and grow as much as possible.
I remember when I got approved to get my MBA funded through my company, which was great. But my manager at the time told me, sat me down, and she said, "It's like, I just want you to understand, like, just because you finished your degree does not guarantee you a promotion." I said, I appreciated that. It's like, look, I get it. I said, but I'll be disappointed in myself if through the next almost 3 years, applying what I'm learning here in the job, that I don't move up. But that's on me 100% to go and do that. I've seen teams handle this very well. I mean, again, I know that you do that. I just personally, I always have an account with, we've got LinkedIn Learning, of course, and Coursera and edX. There's a bunch of other tools. I've got accounts going, and I have classes that I'm taking in each one of those that I then ignore for weeks and then go back and have a spurt and then ignore for weeks and go back. But you can embed a lot of this into the work itself. So letting people try new tools, own part of a project that's outside of their formal role, or explore ideas that tap into strengths that maybe they didn't, you as the manager, you recognized in them. They've not fully explored or developed that side of things. And so it's not today part of the job, but maybe they'll move into something, a role that they hadn't considered.
Yeah. And I also believe that when leaders are actively rewarding, people trying to better themselves in some way, and that can, even be curiosity, experimentation, trying new things, doing things that maybe don't make them feel comfortable, right? But they're trying, that it sends this really powerful signal that learning isn't something that you do outside of work. It's part of the job. And I've said this over and over and over. I expect, everybody who works for me to spend, an hour a week. That's all I'm asking, an hour a week doing something that's new, learn something that's new, go out and get a new skill, because I believe that it is part of the job that you have, not something, anything beyond that, you might want to continue to learn it on your own time, but at least part of it should be part of the job that you're doing.
Yeah. And that helps the team to also evolve alongside the new technology, especially those of us that work in tech. If you work in white collar roles, information systems, anything around that, collaboration tools, even if it's just, Microsoft Office productivity tools, so much is changing so quickly, especially now with AI and being inserted everywhere. So when you have a culture where learning is respected and encouraged, it doesn't have to be, paying people to go and do something, but strengthen their skills. It means that you're better able to adapt to changing business needs, and instead of constantly feeling you're having to catch up, you might actually have your team ahead of the curve on some of the changes that are happening.
Yeah. And when growth is intentional and planned, dare say forced.
Lightly forced, encouraged strongly.
Yeah, encouraged strongly. People also tend to stay more engaged, more adaptable, and more invested for the long term. Where, like when we mentioned before, if you ignore it, even your best talent can eventually slip away in one way or another.
Yeah. This is one of that a lot of managers don't realize that they're doing, that they're ignoring this, that they're not making room for learning until it's too late. As always, I know we have stories, we have experiences on this. We'll cover all of those. Anybody watching this, if you have personal stories, please comment below, share your thoughts, your ideas, some of your experiences. We'd love to hear from you, especially out on our fledgling YouTube. It's still, we don't have the numbers that we have since we moved. We knew that would happen. But please go out to YouTube and search for @Project Failure Files. You'll find us. Comment. Let us know your thoughts, your ideas.
Yeah, tell us, the what not to do. Those are the ones we really enjoy reading. Tell us the what not to do. Okay, so let's get started with some definitions.
Yeah. So, I mean, thinking of this, I think of overlooking the growth curve. This is that slow, often invisible failure to nurture your employees. And, it's what happens when someone becomes good enough at their job, I guess, and we stop investing in them. So they're doing their performance there. The work still gets done, but learning stalls overall. And when growth stops, then that's when disengagement starts quietly taking its place. And I think of this too, where I had conversations with direct reports employees who, were really wanting to grow and expand their career, their knowledge. And so it was a way where I said, like I don't have the budget. Like, I'm tied. Like, we're in this economy at the time when I had this conversation, there's nothing I can do there. It's like, but, I can help you, knowing that the path you want to go down to is I can approve some additional training dollars to allow you to go to centralized training. Again, the benefit of a big company, to go and do this internally, but to go and take additional courses that I think you would fit in with the path that you want to be on. And just a little side note here, that because we were having regular conversations that we're getting into, like, what do you want to do when you grow up kind of conversations, I was aware of these things before, good employees took flight because they were unsatisfied and disengaged. If you have the conversations and you're open and honest with people about, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, said, here, let me do this for you. I have control over this. And it worked out in my case. So I was able to retain somebody that we really didn't want to lose on the team.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm a big believer in microtransactions, and I always kind of believe that if we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards, right? And so, when we think about the definition of overlooking the growth curve, the idea is ignoring that there's this organic growth that happens in people, and instead just assuming that if you just kind of let them be, that they're just going to continue to stay at the level they're at. And I think, as managers, it is our responsibility to actively nurture those people and actively help them to, at least stay strong in the skill set that they have. And, they don't even have to become, I dare say, better or different than what they are. It's really keeping them healthy in the level that they're at and letting them grow to the level that they want. And when you are not doing that, when you are just letting them be, it's kind of like if you have a house plant and you're like, it'll get enough rain and sunshine. I don't need to do anything for it. And then like the poor little house plant's out there dying on the deck, right? Because it's like, no, I really need you to pay attention to me at least a little bit.
Then you have that one freak plant, which I had in my windowsill. And then it got all sunburned and stuff. And I watered it all the time. I'm thinking about it because I saw it every day and it's dying. And so I stuck it in the bathroom that has no window. And I always forget to water it. And it's thriving in there. So
yeah, well, there's always that employee that if you stick in the dark room by themselves, they will be successful.
Yeah.
I will agree with that, Christian. Yeah.
No, but I mean, look at this. I mean, especially in high pressure environments, learning is often treated as this luxury, and the focus becomes
100%.
Just get it done. And the irony of that is when you stop developing people, your short-term output might survive, but your long-term capability won't, because all your best people and all that knowledge will leave. They will leave.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they will leave or they will give up.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thinking about like the project and cultural impacts for this, there's the individual impact to this. So you have people, especially your high performers, as you point out, that feel stuck or they're underutilized or invisible. They don't have enough to go and do, or there's not enough variety in the projects. and I've said this to them, like, look, this is what we do. These are the core projects. This is what we need. You have the skill. You're one of our best at doing this. What could we do to break this up? And that's where we've done where, create, I don't have the budget. I can't give you more money around this. You've already kind of at the top of the band in this for this role, and it's difficult to move up, or they've frozen moving up internally. I'm getting in too much of the weeds, I know, folks. But part of it was giving them new creative, potential. It was having them go and sit and do, what do you call that? Like to mirror people in other job roles, spend more time, giving them that, assistant to the director title. Allow them to go and spend more time with the product team or over with the support organization, make them a liaison with some of these other teams. There are other different duties you can give people to give them more of a perspective on what's happening with the business. Sometimes you have to be creative to do that, but for your best people, I'd rather be creative than have them disengage or leave.
Well, and you don't want the adage at your place, on your team, on your project, at your place of work. You don't want the adage to be that that the reward for a job well done is more work, right? That is not what you really want. What you want is the reward for a job well done to be opportunity, right? Opportunity to grow, opportunity to learn, opportunity to try something different. Because we want people to stay engaged and motivated and continue to grow. And when we don't do that, you're absolutely right, is they just kind of feel like, I think your individuals feel like, well, if I do a good job, I just get more work. And if I, try to learn something new, I'm going to be kind of pushed back. And if I just kind of stay the status quo and don't try too hard, then everybody's happy. Well, that's not really the sentiment that you really want your individuals to have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard that you want to be careful with, are we just doing the same thing or repeating this, the same mistakes? There's actually a lot that a manager can do to help get past that. Even if the reality on the ground is that these are the projects that we do, this is what we do, this is the job you signed up for. You've got this. I mean, with a lot of those folks, especially your high performers, is because they've mastered that. So you need something to challenge them. So if you have a culture in your organization that prioritizes delivery over development of your people, you're going to become very efficient, but it becomes fragile. If there's just something doesn't go right or whatever, then they're just be like, okay, that's it. I've had enough. So you can have a team that's good at executing today's problems, but the other side of it is a lot of times this lack of learning and organization comes from the management layer that is not paying attention also to the changes that are happening in technology and the industry with their customers that are out there. Things don't remain the same. They're constantly changing.
Since when?
Since right now, Sharon.
Dang it.
But if you have a team that's out there learning, advancing, developing them, they're going to be more prepared for tomorrow's challenges. They're going to be watching for this, learning about, especially if it's external training out and they're mixed in with people from other companies, for example, have conversations, share work stories between them. It's going to better prepare them for other challenges. Eventually, if you're not trying to fill that gap, it's a missed opportunity, or you're going to lose the talent. I keep coming back to that, people leaving, but look, that's the number one reason why people leave a company is bad manager. Number two is because they feel stifled, and it's right up there. Number two.
Yeah, I believe it. I really just, I think that, if you were to think about yourself or ask your friends, ask any of your coworkers, the people you've worked with, I think you're absolutely right. Like do a personal poll, right? Just ask around and think about the opportunity that you've had over your career, and think about the organizations that you've worked at, where the culture has been to grow and learn and, stay on top of changes and stay ahead of the curve and be at the forefront of what's going on. Even if it was a little uncomfortable, versus the organizations where they're like, nah, let's just, just show up and do the stuff. And we don't need any of, that new technology, or we don't need to learn things, or you don't need training. Like, that's just a waste of your work week, right? You can tell the difference in those cultures. And I think ultimately, if you do a personal poll and think about it, like, you're going to see a pretty disparate difference between both of those places. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that the one that kind of stays ahead of the curve is also constantly nurturing their people and watching for those opportunities.
Yes, they are. Funny how that works. People are out there that are getting excited. They're getting kind of rejuvenated in their roles, and different ideas coming in. And so, I mean, that's another thing too, is that here's a Buckleyism that I always use, is that people solve problems, they attack problems through their lens of understanding, meaning based on what they know, what they understand, their project view, their world view. That's how they solve things. When you expand that view, when they see what new technology can do, new ways of using older technology, different business systems, different frameworks and methodologies and all those kinds of things, they may go back to what you thought was working just fine and be like, I think we can optimize this further. I think we can do better. And so that's what that refreshing does. Plus, it's just, look, if you're sitting in a room doing the same thing over and over again, I mean, just stagnates around there. Like, you need to get up and go walk around, go for a walk outside, refresh your frame of mind, your perspective on something, and come back to it. That's why, like with memory, I know how my memory works. If I just can't remember something at all, I will go and do something completely different, like disengage the brain.
Yep.
And then suddenly I'll just be like, oh, that's what that was. It just comes unlocked. Yeah,
you definitely need contrast. And, and I could hear it now. I can hear our listeners going, you don't understand. We work in a system oriented, we do the same thing all the time organization. We don't veer from the path. You're not talking to us. And I am saying now, like, at some level, your organization is making change, or they are not. They're watching for opportunities or not. They're making sure that you're getting what you need or not. Even if you're in a role that you don't feel changes on a regular basis, there may be things. So maybe if you're working at like a public entity or a government type, institution, it might be that your change is a lot bigger and less often.
Yeah.
But I promise you, if you're in an organization that's watching for it and nurturing those people, there are things that are happening. They may just not be as obvious in your individual role as they are kind of at the organizational level. And you can always tell the places that aren't, because you guys are probably still using computers that don't work. You probably have,
There's nothing wrong with my amber screen monitor.
You probably have a monitor with a tube in it. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of, people who cannot maybe afford to keep up with technology. But what I will tell you is that it doesn't matter what kind of role you're in. Everything is going to change at some point, and there's always that growth and opportunity that's going to happen in every single role.
We've gone through a number of the pitfalls already, Sharon. I mean, we talked about like the silent disengagement, that people really, they don't complain in a lot of those organizations. That usually goes hand in hand. An organization that doesn't support learning and growth of their people. I've even heard openly managers at some crappy organizations talk about, well, these people, like, they don't know, they're not smart enough to do this kind of stuff, whatever, like that kind of attitude. I mean, it's not just in movies, folks. Like I've worked with some companies where they just treated their teams very poorly.
Yep.
So there's that silent disengagement. The talent leaves. There's that talent drain there. The best people leave first.
Yep.
There's skills stagnate. But then there's nobody that wants to stick around. The leaders that, or the talented people, they don't want to stick around and take a leadership job in a company where there's no opportunity and they don't support that. So what happens? They leave. Who do you promote from within? The middle tier or lower middle tier of people. It's not always the best and the brightest that then stick around in there. I mean, I know some really hardworking mediocre people, and they got promoted because they were the last people standing. All the talent left. So, I mean, also, that's the biggest danger, I'd say, of not supporting learning is it's that silence. People don't complain, they don't push back, they just disengage. And by the time the leadership team realizes, hey, there's something wrong here, there's something toxic, the resumes are already updated, they're out there, you start to see the first trickle of people leaving, and then it goes in waves. I know I've heard somebody say it's like, that like anything, that goes in threes. Like bad news comes in threes, good people leaving comes in threes. I honestly wait for 1, 2, 3 shoes to drop.
Yeah. Well,
it seems to always work like that.
And, I feel like one of the pitfalls of not nurturing people and growing and changing and making sure that everybody has opportunity to kind of go, forward in their career is that ultimately you feel like you're always fighting fires. Like everything becomes very reactive because you're not proactively looking ahead. You're not proactively planning in that area. So you're probably not proactively planning in other areas.
Yes. Yeah. I've worked with some incredibly capable people who kept delivering year after year, but then they stopped caring. And not because they were unhappy. They wanted to be successful. They believed in what the company was doing. But no one ever asked where they wanted to grow. So when they finally had that conversation, it was somewhere else with someone else.
Was that me? Was I your friend? Because legit, that has happened to me over and over and over and over and over and over. And I, I'm going to very transparently and vulnerably say, I grew up as a woman in IT. I grew up in a woman in software development. And it really kind of was a struggle, is that I really wanted to move up, but there weren't as many opportunities. And I just don't think, it was there. And inevitably, if I wanted to move up or move out or learn something, a lot of times I had to do it by getting a job at a different place. And that happened quite a few times for me.
That is so unfortunate. That is a very common story, though. To move up, you have to move on. That means something is broken inside your organization. And that is another great topic that we could.
Yeah, that's a really good topic.
Move up, you have to move on.
And I think it's more common than we really want to talk about, especially as you start to think about moving up in organizations that do not have, and I'm not talking about like, there are organizations that have very detailed, ascension plans where it's like, I know what level I'm at and what level I can get to and what I need to do to get to that level. But in organizations that are a little bit more unstructured, and it's like, I don't know what I need to do to move up. And we're not even talking about roles in this particular conversation. We're talking about learning and growing and opportunities and changing skill sets. Like, maybe I want to learn how, this is a very common one as a business analyst. Maybe I want to learn project management skills, right? Or if I'm a project manager, maybe I want to learn program management or portfolio management or something, or process management. And if my organization does not support me putting in the time and effort to learn those skills and practice those skills in my daily job, I can guarantee you that another organization is going to be interested in that. And those top talents are going to walk out the door to that.
And I've seen, and kind of like you just illustrated, I know that you've had experience too. So I've seen the opposite of this, where giving someone that stretch responsibility really opened things up for that person. It helped them kind of uncover strengths that they didn't know that they had, were unexpected for the organization. Their engagement levels skyrocketed. Again, the fact that my company paid for my MBA, I was super enthusiastic about every week. Here's what I learned about. Here's what we're going through, because the school encouraged applying what we were learning to our day jobs wherever possible. And so I was doing that, would talk about work projects. I didn't think about, I didn't share, intellectual property or anything like that. But again, my work projects became my school projects. and I incorporated them in there. And so my engagement skyrocketed. The team benefited from that. And suddenly, development, of my skills, it wasn't a side activity. It was a performance multiplier.
Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Yeah. Do you have another idea there? Well, so strategies for overcoming this issue. So organizations that aren't doing this, one, is you watch for, like, if you feel like, if your gut is that there's reduced curiosity, there's fewer questions and minimal initiative being taken by your employees, go with your gut. If you think that that's happening, it's probably worse. You're just scraping the surface, because I think your employees hide it better than what you're seeing.
Yeah. I think, and one of the things that you really want to ask is, like, what are you learning? What are you working on? And I know, again, I try to be aggressively helpful about this. I'm always, like, hey, what are you working on right now? What's the next thing you're doing? What's and whether that's a cert, or whether that's a skill, or whether that's, something just in your, your life, you're trying to better yourself. I think if you're asking that as a manager on a regular basis, you're kind of going to know where your people are, and you're going to know what they're focused on, and also where they're at kind of in their lives and their season and their career, and how that matches up to what they're learning as well. But
I think learning is also a collaborative effort. What I love about, like, that idea too, is that when it is in the culture built in, and we're supporting each other in that, that learning adventure, is that, and sharing that with each other, is, I've had quite a few times where I'm hearing about peers and people I work with on project and what they're doing. I'm like, ooh, I need to go look into that. Where is that? And so I get introduced, I get the side benefit of their learning about something, and even advice like, don't waste your time with this one, or I looked in that certification, it was hogwash. Go look over on this one. It's much better. It's much more realistic. I finished that certification. If you really want to, like, this book I read was the best for preparing for that test. I mean, that kind of stuff. So you can learn from the learning experiences, the journeys of other people. So that is, you think about it though, with all of this, is that growth needs intention. So the leadership, the management needs to have the intent, needs to be supportive of that. There should be a plan in place for yourself, for your direct reports. And so asking them questions about, okay, what is your plan? Like you said, like, what are you learning about? What are you doing? What are you interested in? And then challenging them and saying, hey, I want to see this in your updates. When we do our one-on-ones, I want to hear about this every week, every month, whatever the frequency is. What you're doing there. I just want to see that you're sticking with this plan.
Well, and the next thing that I take from that is, how can I integrate the things that you're learning and get business value out of that, right? So how can I give you the opportunity to apply the skills that you're learning and whatever it is that you're doing, to be able to then, make that part of your role or your team or your organization? Because one, that's going to help you solidify whatever skills you're learning. And two, it's going to provide value back to the project or the team or the organization, at that level.
Yeah. No, I think that all of this stuff, the ability to identify hidden skills, moving beyond, it's just something that's so frustrating to me, Sharon, is that when you've been in, companies where somebody comes and tells you, it's like, well, that's not in your job description. It's like, no, well, it needs to be done, and no one's doing it. And I'm figuring out the right path for it. Like, I'm going to do it until somebody tells me, no, that is my role and it fits in over here. Then I'll happily hand it off to them. In the meantime, especially with customer facing stuff, I'm going to go do it because it needs to be done. But encouraging continuous learning, and highlighting, pointing out, recognizing that people are learning and they're growing, and hey, this is a good thing, and I wish more people would learn about this, and take Sharon's initiative. Like, just look at what Sharon's doing around this. I would love to see everybody find a topic they're passionate about and do something similar. That again has a lot of weight in a company culture.
And you need to normalize it. It's not just making it visible, it's making it normal. It should feel like part of the things you do every day. Meetings are a little bit inevitable, right? We have to end up on meetings at some point in our job. We have to write documents as part of our job. We read things as part of our document, or as part of our jobs. We research things as part of our jobs. There's all these parts and pieces that are part of our day-to-day jobs. And learning and growing should be as normal to our jobs as all of those other things. And I think if you make it visible, so everybody's kind of doing it. And again, it starts at the top, right? Leaders need to be doing it. They need to be showing it. They need to be demonstrating it. Then hopefully it will normalize it within the organization as well.
Yeah. So thinking about best practices, Sharon, what should people take away from all this and go and do? What is a healthy best practice here?
I mean, I definitely think, you should be talking about this on a regular basis, whatever your regular check-ins, one-on-ones, conversations, whatever your regular cadence is to communicate with your team and your coworkers or whatever. I think you really should be talking about, what are you working on and where are you going and what are you trying to accomplish? Don't wait for the annual review cycle or the 360 feedback or whatever it is that you do in your company. Don't wait for the yearly review to be like, what was it that I learned this year? Or what am I supposed to be doing? Like, this should be a regular ongoing thing.
Yeah. I like your point though, also of tying it into work. I like that. Why not then get creative and work with, well, if it's you as the individual contributor, if you as the manager, work together to create a lightweight like learning goals, 1 to 3 learning goals that are tied to your projects, to your actual work, your tasks. So I love that, where you could say, all right, hey, you learned this new things, like come and do that analysis. You just learned about SWOT analysis in your MBA program. Come and do a SWOT analysis on this project or on our organization, and come at the next team meeting, share your output, your thoughts on where we can improve. So I love that kind of thing. And then, and also to, it's funny. I did a session at a recent conference over in Dublin, Ireland, and on community building. And one of the takeaways from building strong community, and that goes for building a strong team, is, it's always like bringing a friend. So if you're learning about something, like find somebody else that you think could benefit from that and help them along that learning path, or walk them through what you learned. And so I think there's always, if you're looking for somebody else that you can help impart upon this knowledge, this new skill, you're always going to find somebody. Someone's always going to welcome that additional, that new learning. So it is something that can be very collaborative in an organization.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the buddy or the apprenticeship program, where essentially, you got 1 or 2 people that you're hanging out with and working on a regular basis. And, that way, when one person learns something new, you all kind of benefit from that information and that experience as well.
Yeah. And I think this is, again, to your earlier point, this shouldn't just be an annual review discussion. This should be something, if you're doing weekly one-on-ones or twice a month or monthly, whatever the cadence is, have those conversations about, like, what are you doing? It's be part of those regular check-ins. When learning becomes normal, it's not special, it's just part of the way that we operate. People then stay curious, they stay engaged, they stay adaptable to the changes that are happening around them. And it will help you'll get a better sense of that spider sense of recognizing curiosity. So when you're interviewing people, like I had there's a senior leader that always talk about and would ask questions around curiosity. And the question wasn't like looking for, he's one of those that would ask really different, unique questions in interviews. And his goal had nothing to do with an answer. They just wanted to see what kind of questions they asked, what clarifying questions, refiners, how they might approach it. but how many questions they asked back. A great example of that is that question, Sharon, you've probably heard, like, how many windows are in New York City? Go,
I don't know.
So, and that people will be like, I don't know, or look it up. Yeah, right. So you think about it. You're in an interview. Somebody asks you that question as the interviewer. How many windows? I remember having a version of this question. And so I said, the first thing I said was, all windows? Yes. Cars, as well as buildings. Is like, yep. I'm like, all right. So I said, what's the population of New York right now? He said, I don't know. I said, can I look it up on my phone? He's like, go ahead. So I'm looking up. So I'm estimating.
Can I ask AI?
So I was just so I answered it. I did kind of a shortcut. I said, well, first thing I would do is I would go and put an estimate together. There's got to be data out there on how many buildings, how many floors there are. I remember seeing a stat that they actually know like how many buildings, but how many floors in all of those buildings. And then there is data out there that shows like the average number of windows. So you could provide an estimate based off of number of buildings, number of floors, average number of windows. You could also then go look at average daily traffic in New York, how many vehicles on the ground, in there, and say, well, and on average in a car, how many windows they have. I don't count the mirrors on the side, but windshield, rear view, 4 windows, 2 big, 2 small on the, on the sides. Anyway, it kind of went through that number of buses, be more accurate, kind of all those different things. I said, I would look at all those things and then calculate the number. I said, are you looking for an actual number? You want me to do the math, go look up the sites, or here's the steps that I would do? And he's like, no, that's fine. Let's move on to that. And I was just thought, it's like, did I succeed in that? Did I fail in that? And from talking to a different manager who asked a similar question, that he's like, that's a great answer. I'm like, he never said it was a great answer.
Gauging your interaction with the problem.
I didn't get that job, but anyway, yeah. But anyway, yeah, recognizing my point in all that, sharing that story is you start to get better as a manager, recognizing the curiosity of people, and curiosity is a strong skill. You want people that are going to experiment, that are going to ask questions, that aren't shy about questioning what is the outcome that we're driving towards. What should we be thinking about? Risk analysis around these different things. You want people who ask questions.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're paying attention and you're helping people to learn and grow, the really great thing is that they will realize that there are more than one ways to grow, and that you don't have to necessarily get a promotion, change roles, or manage people to grow. And so by keeping an eye on this, you are truly offering multiple growth paths to people as well.
So you heard it. There's multiple ways to grow. Sharon says there are 2. I think there are more. We can just agree to disagree on that. No, but Sharon, like thinking about calls to action. What do you want people, like, what can people go do, from this? Takeaways.
I feel like this is like the number one call to action that we have on every single call, every single session that we do. But like this week, like maybe ask your people where they're at, and if they feel like they're learning, if they feel like they're growing, if they feel like they have opportunity to do that. And then here's a crazy idea. Listen to their answer.
Yeah. I would ask questions. I was like, yeah, are you being honest with me? I don't believe you for a second. And then give your opinion. No, I think where you could go on top of that, one, listen to them about what they're learning about. If because there's some people might be honest and say, I feel like I'm not really doing anything on it. Be thoughtful, but try to come back with a stretch goal or opportunity, like challenge them on something. So you get a little bit of an insight. If they're like, I'm not doing anything right now, I was like, all right, so what do you want to do? Don't just leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Ask up or other follow-up questions, and then give them a challenge to go and do that thing. Because I do think it's healthy, just like I think it's also healthy to always be reading something. have a book that's partially digested out there that you're making your way through. It goes in, spurts of more time and ability to go in and read, but constantly be learning and encourage your people to be constantly learning as well.
And always ask them when their next certification is scheduled. That's what a really good leader does. A good leader says, when's your next certification scheduled for?
Harasses you endlessly about it. Be like, come on. I know. Yeah.
But also, I think if we reward that, right? So not just listen, find out what they're doing, make recommendations, but I'm a big fan of rewarding people, celebrating them, and being really excited when people do things that are anything from out of their comfort zone all the way to learning a new skill, especially doing things that are really hard, like getting certifications or creating stuff or, doing something that's, a little above and beyond.
Public acknowledgement of those efforts goes a long way. People not even say anything, but there's something that, again, that's where you could change the culture. You can have a crappy leadership chain, but one good manager who does this can change the direction of the culture of that organization. So be the change. Another bumper sticker to throw out there. Yeah.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Sharon, that's it for this week. Thanks so much. As always, great conversation. Folks, if you're not following us, as I'll say again, out on YouTube, search for projectfailurefiles.com, or sorry, not the .com, just YouTube/@projectfailurefiles. You'll find all of our past episodes.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. My 6-year-old grandson says it all the time. It's like saying goodbye to him. Like, bye, Grandpa. Like and subscribe. Someone watches a lot of YouTube.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye. That meme makes me laugh every time. No.